The champagne glasses were raised high, the string quartet played softly, and the estate shimmered under golden lights. It was the wedding of the year. Luxury cars lined the driveway. Diamonds flashed under chandeliers. Every guest wore designer labels and carefully practiced smiles. And in the middle of all that glitter stood a woman they clearly believed did not belong, they whispered before she even reached the main hall. They judged her dress. They judged her confidence. They judged her silence. What none of them knew was that she owned half the companies funding the entire event. She arrived alone, stepping out of a simple black car instead of the exotic vehicles surrounding it. Dress was elegant but understated. No loud logos. No dramatic jewelry. Just quiet sophistication. The valet hesitated for half a second before taking her keys. That half second said everything. Inside the ballroom, conversations paused as she walked in. It wasn't subtle. A few guests exchanged glances. One woman leaned toward another and whispered, "I didn't know they were inviting staff to sit at guest tables." The bride's cousin, draped in diamonds, approached her with a tight smile. "I help you?" she asked, in the tone people use when they assume someone is lost. "I'm here for the wedding," she replied calmly, handing over her invitation. The cousin glanced at it, slightly confused. The name was on the list. Front section seating, not general admission. Still, the judgment lingered. You could feel it in the way conversations lowered when she passed, the way waiters double-checked her seat, the way a few guests avoided eye contact entirely. At her table, a group of investors discussed market trends loudly. One of them looked at her and smirked. "So, what side are you from?" he asked casually. "The groom's," she answered. "College friend," he pressed, "something like that." He chuckled. "It's a pretty high net worth crowd tonight." He smiled politely. "I noticed." The ceremony began shortly after. The vows were emotional. Applause echoed through the hall. Cameras flashed. But even during the celebration, the subtle disrespect continued. Overheard someone say, "She must have gotten lucky." Another guessed she was an assistant. She never corrected them. She didn't need to because she knew something they didn't, and before the night ended, they would find out. The reception grew louder as the evening progressed. Music filled the air, champagne flowed freely, and conversations became less filtered. The same investor who had questioned her earlier found himself seated beside her again. "So what do you actually do?" he asked, clearly expecting something unimpressive. "I build companies," she replied simply. He laughed lightly. "Don't we all?" She didn't elaborate. Didn't need validation from strangers. Across the room, the groom finally spotted her and excused himself from a conversation mid-sentence. That alone caught attention. He walked straight toward her, smiling widely. Not the polite smile he gave other guests. A genuine one. "You made it," he said warmly, hugging her in front of everyone. "I was hoping you would." A few heads turned. The investor beside her suddenly sat up straighter. "Wouldn't miss it," she replied. The groom tapped his glass for attention moments later. "Before we continue, there's someone here I need to thank," he announced. There wouldn't even be a wedding to celebrate if it wasn't for her. Silence spread across the ballroom. He gestured toward her. "She believed in my startup when no one else did. First investor, biggest supporter. She didn't just write a check. She built the foundation." Murmurs filled the room. The groom continued, "Her firm now backs more Fortune 500 companies than I can count. And she still answers my calls personally." The investor at her table nearly dropped his glass. Phones quietly began searching her name. Faces changed as recognition set in. Articles appeared. Interview. Net worth estimates that dwarfed most people in the room. One whisper replaced another. This time, the tone was different. "That's her. She owns the tech conglomerate. Portfolio is worth billions." She remained seated, composed, as if none of it mattered, because to her, it didn't. What mattered was loyalty. What mattered was character. The applause started slowly, then grew louder. Not because she demanded it, but because reality had shifted the room. Later that night, the same cousin who questioned her at the entrance approached again. The smile was different this time. Softer. Slightly embarrassed. "I had no idea," she admitted quietly. "That's okay," the woman replied gently. "You weren't supposed to." The investor from earlier cleared his throat. "I think we should talk business sometime." She gave a small nod. "Perhaps." But her attention wasn't on deals. It wasn't on numbers. It wasn't even on reputation. She watched the bride and groom dance under soft lights, remembering when that same groom had once pitched an idea in a small rented office with barely enough funding to survive 6 months. Back then, no one laughed at him. They simply ignored him. She didn't, and tonight, she had been underestimated in the same way. Judged before being understood. The difference was, she didn't measure worth by appearance, clothing, or social circles. She measured it by vision and integrity. As she prepared to leave, guests who once avoided her now tried to shake her hand. Compliments replaced whispers. Respect replaced doubt, but she moved through them with the same calm presence she had when she arrived. No arrogance. No need to prove anything further. Outside, the night air felt quieter than the ballroom. Her driver opened the door, but she paused for a moment, looking back at the glowing estate. Wealth can be loud, can sparkle and demand attention, but real power doesn't need to announce itself. Inside that mansion, she had been mocked without words, judged without conversation, and yet she walked out richer, not just in money, but in dignity, because the strongest flex is silence, and sometimes, the person standing alone in the corner owns the room without ever raising her voice.